Story 1. Growing up, I worked at a chain grocery store. They had a policy that if an item price label did not match the scanned price in the computer, the first item was free and any subsequent items were sold at the lower price. Every few months, an elderly woman would come in and spend 4 to 5 hours shopping. When she reached the register, she would have a full cart and nearly everything would be free. I rang up her purchases a handful of times and only found a few items where the price was wrong. At one point, she found a comforter that had been mislabeled and got it for free. The sticker price had been $40 to $50. More than once, the store manager watched her on the store cameras to ensure she was not switching stickers, but he never saw her do anything sneaky. She calmly inspected each item on the shelf one at a time. Eventually, the policy changed and she stopped coming in. In summary, store managers did not like this. Story 2. There is an application for a local burger chain that lets you roll the dice to get a code for a free double patty burger upgrade. It was designed to allow only one try per day, and it showed the date of the roll on the code so the cashier could verify it. However, I discovered you could change the date on your phone and try again immediately. If you received nothing, you could change it again and repeat until you got a code. After getting a code, you would change the date back to the current date and the application would update the code so it appeared to be rolled that day. I received free burger upgrades for years until they finally removed the feature. I do not know if anyone ever discovered this exploit. They removed it for other reasons. Story 3. My friend used to restock condom machines in pubs and collect the money. The machines often jammed, and because the product was condoms, people rarely complained when a machine kept their money. He would count how many condoms were gone, report that amount to the company, and pocket the rest. He later moved on to another job. The next person collected all the money correctly but discarded their records. Story 4. I was good friends with my building superintendent at a job I have since left. He also served as superintendent for several other buildings downtown. My friend received a terminal cancer diagnosis, and on his last day at the building he gave me an envelope that contained what appeared to be a parking garage card. He told me I had been such a great friend and that he wanted to give me his key to the kingdom. It would save me a lot of money because it worked in every city-owned parking garage downtown. I left that job in 2012, and to this day the card still works at more than 12 downtown parking garages. Going to a concert or sporting event. Swipe the card for the arena garage. Need to park at the courthouse or city hall garage. Swipe the card. Going to a movie, club, or park. Just swipe the card for free parking, day or night. Bruce, you left us way too soon, but you gave me a gift that keeps on giving. I miss you, buddy, and thanks for saving me a lot of money. Story 5. When I was a kid, there was a pay phone down the street that, if you put a quarter in and the call was not answered, returned 2 quarters. I went there often and called home when I knew no one would be there to answer. Story 6. Years ago, I was a season ticket holder for an awful National Basketball Association team. My tickets came electronically as portable document format files. I had okay seats in the upper part of the lower bowl, but nothing great. On nights when I knew it would be empty, which was most nights and less, a superstar such as Kobe Bryant or LeBron James was in town, I used the full version of Adobe Acrobat to edit the files to show a much better seat location than mine. The barcode still scanned because I did not change it, but when the usher took my printout, all he saw was that I was sitting on the floor. I got away with it for years until the team actually got good for a while and the arena was packed. Story 7. I went to a sporting goods store, and they asked me for my phone number when I was paying. I was in a bad mood and did not want to argue with the clerk, so I gave them our local area code and 555-1212, the old number for directory assistance. The clerk accepted it and I left. When I checked my receipt, I had a huge number of loyalty points because apparently many other people did the same thing. I called the office the next day and switched the account to my new address. Several times over the next few years, I redeemed the points for free items as one of their most loyal customers. Edit. Wow. I have never had a comment blow up like this before. Thank you, everyone. It made my day. Story 8. Parking meters accepted credit cards, but they were not connected to a live network at all times. The machine only confirmed a card number was valid and not expired, then issued a parking pass. When my card number was stolen and replaced, I kept the old canceled card. When the system later tried to charge the card, it was declined. By then my car and I were long gone. They eventually updated the system to charge the card before issuing the pass. Story 9. I worked out how to get the jackpot every time on a Connect 4 fruit machine in a pub I used to go to. It cost about £5 to £10 to reach the bonus round. When you did, you played a Connect 4 game against the machine. You placed the first counter, then after the machine placed the next counter, you mirrored the machine's move. Every game ended in a draw and you won the jackpot of £50. The pub landlord removed the machine after about 3 months because it was regularly empty. It had basically paid for my drinks and more. Story 10. When I was in school, they sent home a form for our parents to fill out. The idea was to collect updated contact information in case anything had changed, such as phone numbers and other details. If a student was late to school, the school sent text messages to the parents to let them know. For me, the usual punishment was grounding. I was often late, so I put my own phone number on the form and began receiving the text messages intended for my parents. I was grounded far less frequently after that. Story 11. One week the local Chick-fil-A placed a coupon in a local coupon flyer offering buy one, get one free. Next to that coupon, they had another offering 50% off. I carefully checked, and neither coupon said that they could not be combined with any other offer. So I ran to the grocery store and grabbed a stack of those flyers. Sure enough, the next week the offer was gone, but it was too late to stop me. I spent nearly 2 years as a graduate student living almost exclusively on 128-count nugget platters that I could get for 25% of the cost. The first half was half price and the second was free. The restaurant went under new management and posted a sign saying they would no longer accept those coupons. I was not entirely sure if that was due solely to me or if others were doing the same thing. I had about 20 pairs of coupons left when they shut it down. Story 12. This is still ongoing. Thanks to a charge card, I was granted top-tier elite status with a hotel chain. I downgraded 6 years ago, but the status remained. The hotel chain went through a merger, and because I had retained the status for over 10 years, I was given lifetime top status in the new program. Story 13. This is super weird and I have not thought about it in years, but I suppose it was a loophole. Soda companies used to run giveaways where they put a code under the cap, and you could enter the codes for points and get free items once you had enough points. I was a stock boy at a local grocery store and we also took care of the bottle return machines. Any loose caps and soda residue would settle in the bottoms of the bags. So on slow nights, we would cut the corner of the bags to drain them and collect the caps. I would wash the caps in the mop sink and take them home to redeem the codes. I ended up getting some nice things like a few compact discs, a zip-up sweatshirt, and even some decent noise-canceling headphones. Laughing out loud. Story 14. I used to go to a Mongolian barbecue in the mall that had very thin frozen sheets of meat. You picked the meat and they cooked it for you as long as it fit in the bowl they gave you. The slices were folded into ribbons so they took up more room in the bowl. I realized I could use the back of my hand and my knuckles to crush the folded meat and fit about a pound more into the bowl, and since it was already in the bowl they had to cook it. My ex and I went 3 times a week and one bowl fed us both for about $5. After about a year the staff caught on. One visit I did my usual backhanded meat punch and a worker yelled to get my attention. He pointed to a printed sign showing a fist and the words "no fist meat" with a circle and a cross through it. That was my legacy there, and the food was never the same when it was 99.5% noodles. My ex and I later broke up and that was the only good thing in that old toxic relationship. Story 15. I grew up down the street from Universal Studios and went there every day after middle school. Eventually we learned to use the very important person line for rides, which was usually empty. When a staff member stopped us and asked for our very important person tickets, we said a high-ranking employee named Rick had called it in. After a few seconds of radio verification, the staff gave up and let us through. We skipped lines for years with that method, and eventually ride attendants learned to recognize us and let us through. It was wonderful. One day we got bold and snuck into the studio area. Guards caught us and asked who we were with. We told them our fictional Rick had told us we could be there. The guards took radio verification much more seriously and managed to get a real Rick on the line. We waited, knowing we were caught. Rick arrived. He was the backlit manager at the time and gave us a strange look. The security guard asked if we were with him, and the manager said yes. He took us aside, asked what we were doing, and we said we loved film and the studio atmosphere. He liked that two young kids were interested in his work and began showing us around the studios. He let us sit in on tapings of various shows, gave us a free pass to return anytime, and granted us very important person line access. Story 16. I used to work at Redacted about 7 years ago. They printed receipts that, if you filled out a survey, included a 6-digit code you could exchange for a free drink. However, when customers handed in a receipt with the code, we would toss the receipt in the trash and give the free drink. Over a shift, I kept the survey receipts that customers did not want, wrote random numbers on them, and ended up with a wallet full of free coffee vouchers. Because I already had many free drinks, I gave them to homeless people and explained each voucher was good for a free coffee. I probably gave away about 100 free drinks. Story 17. A local casino issued a $20 free play coupon in the newspaper with no expiration date. I talked to the newspaper delivery person and asked about that copy. He told me he had hundreds of them in the van because they were a few days old. I took them, clipped out the coupons, and proceeded to make $19.50 every day after work for about 500 days. The casino has not printed a coupon without an expiration date or a one per customer rule since. Story 18. My old job was at a pretty large gym at the gold level, the third highest. The monthly fee was $79 for the gold membership, but employees received a free diamond membership. I worked there for a year and a half before I quit, but my account was never deactivated. I have been using it free for some time and they still have not found out. The diamond membership costs about $200 a month. Story 19. I lived in an apartment across the road from a casino while I was at university. They released an application that awarded points when you checked in, which could be redeemed for free food and drinks. Because I was close enough, I could check in without going into the casino. Every Saturday, I got a free burger, fries, and a drink while watching sports in the sports bar. They eventually scrapped it. It was perfect for a broke university student. Story 20. Got the keys to a new flat on a Friday afternoon. The place had electricity, but it wasn't in my name. I went to the electricity company just before closing. The woman said, "Flat 8, you say? We only have a record of 7 flats in that building. Tell you what, come back Monday with the serial number on your meter and we'll get you all hooked up." I never went back and enjoyed free electricity for over 2 years until I moved out. Clarification. When I say, wasn't in my name, the building was originally a large single dwelling that had been converted into flats. Mine, I guess, was a late addition and I was the first tenant. It simply wasn't registered to me or anyone. It is also standard here in the United Kingdom to pay the individual utility bills to the individual utility companies providing their services. Story 21. In the late 1980s, you could make a long-distance collect call from a payphone and charge it to a private number. The operator would call the other number to confirm. We would ask the operator to call the number of another nearby payphone and have a friend authorize the call. We had free long-distance service for almost a year. Story 22. Because I was a good student and rarely got into trouble, I was allowed to have my own phone extension in my room. If I was out past curfew, I would call home. When my mother answered, I would say, "It's for me. I've got it." And she would think I was upstairs in my room. This was 1976. My mother never knew. I know because I confessed years later. She was very shocked and angry and grounded me, but I was 40 and owned my own house by then. My parents were early to bed, early to rise types, and my room was a converted attic 2 floors above the other bedrooms. Often came home after everyone else was asleep because I had a part-time job, so I was used to sneaking in quietly. It was a bright yellow Princess phone. I did not abuse the privilege. I used it only a few times when it was absolutely necessary, like the time we hitchhiked to see Peter Frampton. Story 23. My family used to go to this campground in the summer and rent a little cabin for a week. In the main building, there was a small arcade with mostly older games, a foosball table, and an air hockey table. Most people did not know the air hockey table was broken. If you put quarters in, you could push the plunger to start the machine and then get your quarters back if you did it just right. A couple of summers were very fun because another kid and I would keep the air hockey running the whole time. The arcade would be filled with kids who often played other games while waiting their turn. They must have found out after a few years because one year we returned and it was fixed. The arcade was a ghost town, and the campground no longer made money from it. That is when, at about 13, I understood the concept of a loss leader. Story 24. In high school, our physical education grade was based on improvement. We took a skills test at the beginning of the term and another at the end, and the grade depended on how much you improved. Once I learned that I intentionally did poorly on the first test and then performed much better on the second, so I showed a large improvement and received a better grade. Story 25. My boss was always late and patients would show up early for the first appointment of the day. I told the staff I would change the schedule, so the first appointment appeared to start 15 minutes earlier. We ran like clockwork for a year until the doctor began arriving on time more often. I had to admit patients weren't late. I had just been shifting the schedule to make things run more efficiently. Story 26. Arby's used to have a take a survey on the back of the receipt and get a free roast beef sandwich. When I claimed the free sandwich, I received a receipt as well. I bought one sandwich and received dozens more free over the course of about a year. Story 27. When Lyft first launched, they were giving away free rides up to $20 to $30. All you had to do was refer a friend. My college roommate and I created several email addresses, and somehow my account glitched, so I had free rides for a year. I later discovered the cause. I had lost the debit card linked to the account, canceled it, and received a new one. For some reason, Lyft kept sending charges to my old card, but the charges never came out of my bank account. Story 28. I used to work for the British Broadcasting Corporation. They have, as you would expect, their entire archive digitized. I was working on some cloud projects and needed access to check permissions. The archive contained literally everything ever shown on the British Broadcasting Corporation, downloadable in many video and audio formats. The British Broadcasting Corporation iPlayer is just a fraction of what was in that archive. It took them about 6 years after I left to remove my account, so I had 6 years of free access to probably the largest television and movie database around. There was a lot of activity while I was asleep. I used it mainly to watch documentaries. I am a bit of a history bore, so I would search for something like World War I and see what appeared. You could download video or audio. I would convert downloads to MP3, MPEG-1 audio layer 3 files and listen in the car. It was called Redux, and it is good to see other former British Broadcasting Corporation employees who had access for years. Yes, you have to pay for a television license in the United Kingdom. It is annoying to be forced to pay, but that does mean there are no adverts on the channel, which is nice when watching a program. Oh, and yes, the term British Broadcasting Corporation is sometimes used jokingly to mean something else. No, I do not still have access. That was the point of the thread. Please stop asking me to download things for you. You do not technically have to hold a television license. I meant that even if you only want to watch one program one time, you must pay for a whole year. I support a pay-as-you-go or subscription model. Story 29. I can't believe I got away with it. My mum gave me £20 to buy a large pack of a certain brand of cat food that normally costs £10.99. When I entered the store, I was given a coupon for £5 off that brand. The store was also doing £5 off that type of cat food. At the till, the food was priced at £5.99. I handed over my coupon and it was scanned, so the food cost 99 pence. I couldn't believe my luck because normally it says, "Not for use in conjunction with any other offer." The lady behind the till gave me another coupon, so I went round again and left the store with £22.98 worth of cat food for £1.98, with a third coupon in my hand. The only reason I didn't keep exploiting the loophole was that I had to carry it all home on my BMX bicycle. Thanks for the awards. I didn't expect that response. For backstory, I was about 12 or 13 years old and living in southern England. Story 30. At my current apartment complex, They recently changed the laundry machines, so you must use a very poor, slow application. I discovered that if you press start in the application, press start on the machine, and then exit the application while it is communicating with the machine will start but will not charge any money. I have been washing and drying for free for a few months. The application name is similar to Small GS or Small Payments. Others in this thread use this application, so I will withhold the direct name and you all can use this trick for longer. Story 31. I don't know if this counts as a loophole, but back when I was an unemployed college student and before public transport tickets became electronic where I lived, I used to cover my ticket with a thin layer of glue from a glue stick. When I validated the ticket, the ink would remain on top of the glue. I would then wash the ticket very carefully with water to remove the ink, let it dry, and I would have what looked like a brand new ticket. This lasted about a week before the ticket began to look too worn. Story 32. The time clock we used at Kmart rounded to the nearest quarter hour. By clocking in 8 minutes early and clocking out 8 minutes late, I was paid for 30 minutes instead of 16 minutes. Exploiting this earned me 2.5 hours of overtime each week, which added up to about 6.5 weeks of extra pay during my time there. Since it was all overtime, it was closer to 10 weeks of regular pay. I was never caught. Story 33. At my previous job, we had a vending machine in the basement that gave change when you bought something. Sometimes it gave more than you paid. No one used the machine while the basement was under reconstruction, but it was regularly filled. Someone asked about this. It went on for about 1.5 years, and I do not know what happened to the machine. It was just gone one day. Someone could have caught on, or it could have been removed when construction finished. I probably made $500 to $700 in cash back. At one point, I had a sack of coins. Story 34. I was living near and attending my local university. While working full-time in an economy in the midst of a recession, I barely had enough money to pay the bills, let alone eat. Where I lived was well known for its tourist industry and casinos, so I had quite a few friends who worked in that industry and would tell me about these massive employee luncheon cafeterias. At that time, there were no identification cards or lanyards to scan or check. All you needed was to find the cafeteria and be dressed according to the employer's dress code. After my friend and I did a dry run, I would go alone to find it without getting lost. For almost 3 years, I had lunch and dinner for free. I learned the peak service times and the quiet periods, and I even got along with some of the cafeteria workers and custodial staff. Story 35. There was a soda machine, very old, that still charged 25 cents for a can of soda. Pretty soon I realized it would give you a free can if you mashed the buttons. It was the best part of grocery shopping. Story 36. Newegg used to offer a third-party warranty called replacement or refund. It covered laptops under $500. The warranty cost about $75 for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, I filed a claim for a small defect such as a faulty headphone jack, card reader, or broken key, sent the laptop to them, and they refunded me the full $500. Then I bought a different laptop and purchased the warranty again. I repeated the process 3 times, using the refunded $500 to buy a new laptop each time. I effectively rented a laptop from Newegg for $37 per year. Story 37. On Spoon's old menu, if you ordered 2 sides of half rack of ribs and a portion of chips, it worked out cheaper than ordering the ribs meal. You had to give up the 2 or 3 onion rings that came with the meal, but instead of a dash of chips, you got a whole basket, and it was a couple of pounds cheaper. Story 38. At our university, each student had a quota of around 50 pages per month they could print in the computer labs for free. After that was used up, students had to pay. However, the credit system worked only on the Macintosh and Microsoft Windows machines. This was before everyone and their dog had their own laptops. Down the hall was a Solaris computer pool that nobody used, and the quota software was not installed there. Students who knew about this and were willing to use the not-so-user-friendly Solaris systems could print as much as they liked for free. Story 39. I drove to university for my undergraduate degree, where parking on campus cost $15 per day. When you entered the lot at the automatic gate, a machine issued a parking ticket and the gate would raise to let your car in. To prevent excessive calls to parking security, The entry ticket also allowed you to exit through the gate for up to 10 minutes after issuance. After that, you had to pay $15 for the whole day. We learned that if you placed a laptop on the ground exactly where a car would be when a ticket was issued, it would trigger the gate to open and a new entry ticket would be issued. The new ticket was valid for 10 minutes. If you hurried to your car, you could leave with the new ticket. I had free parking for all 4 years of my undergraduate studies. It felt good to save hundreds of dollars on parking after being charged thousands for tuition. Story 40. I had a profitable racket in school. I bought the graduating class's used textbooks for about $5 and sold them to a third-party bookseller in the next town, who paid me between $25 and $30 for each one. Eventually, people started asking questions and others figured out the deal. Story 41. On the original Kindle, you could buy a book with an expired card and Amazon would deliver it. A minute later, you would receive a notification saying the payment had not gone through. You had to select an option confirming you were aware of this, and then they would remove the book. If you hit the home button, it would dismiss the notification and you could continue reading, unaware that the payment had failed. I did this once a month during my junior year in high school. The summer before my senior year, I could no longer do it. Coincidentally, my passion for reading died around that time. Story 42. I photoshopped a college parking pass to hang in my rearview mirror, complete with a fake barcode. I even had it laminated. I had free parking for 3 years and saved $250 per year. If I was never caught, does this still count? Story 43. Jack in the Box used to have a get 2 free tacos with any purchase coupon on the bottom of their receipts. A group of my friends discovered that if we bought the cheapest item, a slice of cheese, we could get 2 free tacos every day for 20 cents. Story 44. It was not intentional, but once I found out, I did not stop. Years ago, I used my card to pay for Xbox Live during a period before I could manually purchase a 1-year subscription. When I tried to remove my card details, it would not let me and said I had to call Microsoft directly. Being lazy, I changed the saved security numbers so it would not process any future payments. Although future payments were blocked, I still retained Xbox Live access for about 1.5 years before it stopped. I was never contacted about paying for what I had used. Edit. Wow. I made this comment last night as a throwaway and came back to 7,600 upvotes and my first awards. You guys rock. Story 45. Part-time retail worker for a large retail chain. The company gives employees a 5% discount on all purchases, increasing to 10% on store products. Gift cards are store products, as are vegetables and many groceries. By paying $45 for a $50 gift card and then using the card for my shopping, I can purchase $55.55 in groceries for an effective 19% discount on almost all my essential shopping and 14.5% on everything else. I have on occasion bought a gift card online on my phone while standing in line at the checkout. For years strong and still wondering when they will realize they are giving me a discount on money. Note: you cannot buy gift cards with gift cards. Real money only. The company closed that loophole. Thanks for the awards. Story 46. Many years ago, I was the manager at a Texaco station. This was around 2004. We did not have electronic dispensers. They were all analog, although the prices were controlled from a computer in the office. Whenever we had a price increase, we had to close the station for about 10 minutes because it took that long for the dispensers to update to the new price. I happened to be on the forecourt during an update and picked up a pump to see what price was being shown. I quickly put it down and ran to get my car. During the update, petrol was priced at 5 pence per liter. I filled my tank for less than £5. At the time, our receipts only showed the pump number, the type of fuel, and the amount due. There was nothing about the price per liter or the quantity dispensed. After that, I do not think I spent more than £50 on petrol over the next few years. Story 47. About 10 years ago, American Eagle distributed $10 off $10 coupons on my campus. There were no restrictions. I asked nicely and one of the sales representatives gave me a stack of them. Guess how much socks and underwear cost? $10.50. It was years before I paid more than 50 cents for either. Sunglasses were about $2 and flip-flops too. The accessories world was mine to flaunt. I never saw that deal again. Story 48. When we had a 1-hour daily limit on our America Online account, my sister discovered that unplugging the phone line during a session and logging back in reset the timer. Story 49. There was a machine at an arcade similar to Dave and Buster's called Round One. I was there with a group of friends and went to the prize area. I saw 3 kids with Funko Pop dolls stacked over their heads, heading to the register. I jokingly asked what their secret was. They would not tell me, so I offered to trade my ticket-making secret. They told me there was a machine giving more tickets than normal. I went to find it. It was one of those mobile games turned arcade machines that no one would play. I played it once and got 700 tickets for about 50 cents. To put it in perspective, a Nintendo 3DS cost 40,000 tickets. I played for about an hour and got enough for a Nintendo 3DS. We got so good at the game that we would win the jackpot every time, and it would give us 6,000 tickets. It would take 15 minutes for the machine to count it all. My friends and I stayed all day the next day and made enough tickets to get 2 PlayStation 4 consoles, 2 Wii U consoles, and 2 Nintendo 3DS consoles. It was such a lame game that no one else ever bothered to try it. They eventually found out when they walked over to observe the game while I was playing. I walked out, drove to a town over just to be safe, and redeemed all my tickets. In short, I got 6 consoles for about $80. Story 50. It happened once. I bought a license for a game on Steam that used a different launcher. I tried it, did not enjoy it, and refunded it. Later I checked the other launcher and, while Steam refunded my money, they did not cancel the license on the other launcher. I ended up with the game and its newest expansion, worth €70, for free. Update. It still works, and I ended up enjoying the game after a while. The game was Elder Scrolls Online. Specifically, I received the base game in Skyrim when Skyrim had just been released a few days earlier. Story 51. Not long ago, when I was broke and had just relocated to a new city, I could not afford wireless internet for a few months. The first weekend, I was lying around my apartment playing on my phone and noticed a wireless network in range named Gandalf. I attempted to join, and after being asked for the Wi-Fi protected access password, I entered "You shall not pass" and surfed the internet for free after that. Story 52. There was a promotion from T-Mobile called T-Mobile Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, they gave customers items and offers. One week, they offered a free Whopper at Burger King. I redeemed it, and a few weeks later, they offered it again. I noticed the code was exactly the same, so my dumb brain thought I could screenshot it and use it every Tuesday. I did, and it worked. I eventually started using it on days that were not even Tuesday. It was fun while it lasted, but Burger King removed the offer. Story 53. I worked at a grocery store as a cashier for about 5 years. They had a reward system where you scanned a points card at every purchase and eventually received about 1% of the money you spent back. When a customer did not have a points card and did not want one, those potential points went to waste. I could not scan my own card, so I went to a different location and signed up for a new card with a fake name. I photocopied the barcode from my points card and taped it to the bottom of my wrist. For a few years, whenever a customer did not want to become a member, I rolled up my sleeve for a second and scanned my wrist, and all their points went to my untraceable fake account. In the end, by the time I quit that job and moved on, I walked out with thousands of dollars toward free groceries. Story 54. The university printers had a flaw that allowed you to print any number of pages while paying for only one. I told too many people about it and they eventually fixed the problem, but I was able to print many pages at a very low cost. I am normally not the kind of person to do this, but our professor made us print 20-page state diagrams instead of submitting them electronically, and I was not going to pay for that. Story 55. When I commuted to work, I had to pay to park at a nearby lot that charged $5 per day on a prepaid card. When my balance ran low, I used the ticket machine to reload money onto the card. One day, unknown to me, they were performing a software update when I reloaded the card with $40 in cash. As a result, it did not register the new amount on my card. I think the card had about $10 left. I went into the parking office to complain, but they did not believe me and said I was out of luck. The next day I used the card and instead of deducting $5, it added $5, so my new balance was $15. The following day I had $20 on the card. I used that card for almost 2 years, and the final balance was several $1,000s when it finally stopped working. Honestly, I would have told them about the issue right away if they had not been total jerks about the initial $40. Net gain. Story 56. Tudor's Biscuitville ran a promotion at a minor league ballgame. Everyone received a coupon for one free biscuit sandwich, and it did not state a limit of one per customer. At the end of the game, a man came up to me, offered a box of the coupons, and asked me to pass them out to my friends. For the next year and a half, my friends and I carried money clips full of the coupons, passed them out, and enjoyed a lot of free food. I still think it was strange that no manager ever asked why we had so many coupons or tried to tell us we could not get 20 sandwiches at a time for free. Story 57. Whole Foods used to have bacon on the breakfast bar. Cooked bacon weighs almost nothing. I would get a pound of cooked bacon for $8. It lasted almost a week. I used bacon crumbles on salads, in turkey sandwiches, and in 100 other dishes. I used this method for almost a year, but then they stopped putting bacon out. I sighed. Story 58. I kept a canceled credit card in the car to pay for parking at city parking machines that never validated the card. Eventually word spread, and the city added cellular technology to validate the card. Story 59. Hewlett-Packard used to have an employee store where they sold products at 50 to 70% discounts to employees. Remarkably, you did not need to log in. If you had the web address, you could place an order whether you were an employee or not. Delivery was free and included the standard Hewlett-Packard warranty. I listed their items on Amazon at slightly lower prices than others and made about £5,000 in my second year of university. Story 60. I used to buy books from the Amazon Kindle store using a debit card with no funds. The transaction took a little time, but the book downloaded immediately. If your payment bounced, Amazon would remove the book from your device. By disabling the device's wireless internet after downloading, you could still read the book for free. Story 61. I moved to an apartment and wanted to transfer my internet to the new place. When I called the company to arrange the transfer, I discovered I had internet service but was not being billed. The account remained active and the connection worked, so I did nothing. This continued for 2 years until I moved out. I returned the equipment and received a statement showing a zero balance. No one mentioned the issue. The charge was supposed to be $55 per month. I assumed the representative who processed the transfer made an error. Story 62. My aunt and uncle were trash collectors, both professionally and as a hobby. My mother had pulled one of her epic mistakes again, and we ended up living with them. Most of our food came from the trash. Domino's had a reward system where the boxes had blue or red tabs depending on the size of the pizza. If you collected enough tabs, you got free pizzas. My aunt and uncle collected thousands of those tabs. We ate pizza every weekend for months before the company caught on and put an end to it. I was 11 at the time. I remember hearing their address was banned from delivery for life. I am pretty sure Domino's stopped the promotion shortly thereafter. It was awesome while it lasted. Story 63. When we moved into our new house, we put our trash out like everyone else, and it was routinely taken every Wednesday morning for 12 years. One afternoon, we heard the neighbors complaining about the increased cost of trash removal and learned it was not free at all. We had thought it was county-sponsored. The whole time we lived there, we called the trash company, explained the mistake, and offered to make amends. They seemed disinterested, but they took our name and address and said they would begin billing. They never did. We stayed another 10 years before selling the house and never paid for trash service. We tried. Story 64. I parked in a reserved space at work that never had a car in it. It eventually became mine because I kept parking there. Story 65. I used to work at a grocery store, and we had this era of steak discounts. Hundreds of coupons for $5 off a steak were everywhere for some reason. I discovered that if I used the self-checkout and bought a steak that cost less than $5 while using the coupon, the machine gave me the difference in change. I ate dozens of free steaks and filled my change jar. Thank you. This blew up and I appreciate the awards. I had been alone in my basement for months talking to my pet bunny, and today I felt like a rock star. Story 66. My wife and I financed a new refrigerator. The financing was done through a bank that sends a credit card after the purchase with the item already charged. The card arrived showing no balance. I called the card issuer, and they said there had never been a balance. That was over 6 months ago, and there is still no balance or record on either of our credit reports. Story 67. There is a mall next to where I work that has a 3-hour parking limit. My workplace charged for parking. Once I took my car to Canadian Tire for servicing and noticed they placed a slip on the dash to identify cars being serviced and allowed to park there for the day. I photocopied the slip and used it to park there every day for over a year and a half before I was caught. One day Canadian Tire called to confirm what I was doing and asked me to move before I was towed. I never parked there again after that. Story 68. Delivery broker sites. I found that one delivery company did not know how many parcels they were collecting or how much each parcel weighed. They routinely shipped large parcels for a fraction of the cost, and they have now gone out of business. Story 69. I have always lived in a different city or town than where I work. I have also always worked in an industry that gives preference to coworkers who are parents. I learned early that if I requested time off and said I was going out of town, there would be no hesitation to grant it. I am rarely traveling. I am simply at my home in another town. One coworker knows, but the vast majority have not figured out my system. Story 70. It's a small one, but in high school I didn't want to wear glasses while playing football. They only had glass contact lenses back then, and we couldn't afford them, so I memorized the standard eye chart. The line you needed to read was DEFPOTEC. Edit, fixed the eye chart. I missed an E. Story 71. When I was in college, they had a deal. If you signed up for a free trial of Netflix, you could get a $10 gift card code for Papa John's. They did not ask for a credit card back then, just an email, so I made new email addresses and got a code each time. I ended up with free Netflix for a while and a lot of free pizza. Story 72. Back in the day, I built a red box from a Radio Shack phone dialer and used it to make free long-distance calls for years. Payphones back then produced a different tone for each coin denomination, and the red box played the appropriate tone into the mouthpiece to fool the phone into thinking it was receiving real money. It was a strange trick, but it worked almost all the time. Story 73. Bank of America gave 3% cash back on gas purchases. At the time, I was a heavy smoker and realized that if I paid for gas inside and made other purchases, I would still receive the 3% cash back. I would buy $1 of gas and many cartons of cigarettes. I no longer smoke, which saves even more money. Story 74. I received a lot of free food from Moe's Southwest Grill by completing their daily online survey on my phone and on computers at work and at home. I entered the codes into the app to earn points and did this for a few years. With the $5 burrito during Mo Mondays, it was a no-brainer. Story 75. My friends and I used to sign into each other's PlayStation Network accounts during the PlayStation 3 era to download each other's downloadable content. We each paid for one item and got the rest for free. I think Sony found a way to stop people doing that by the time the PlayStation 4 was released. Story 76. I worked a terrible part-time job with no benefits or career growth that allowed me to clock in 10 minutes before and clock out 10 minutes after my scheduled shift because it involved a lot of walking, adding an extra 2.5 hours per paycheck for virtually no effort. Story 77. My local Groupon website always had a 30% discount coupon that changed daily. Once a month, I received one in the mail. The coupon was processed on top of Groupon's normal 40% discounts at restaurants, so it was effectively a 70% discount. I noticed that it always started with an L followed by 4 digits. So I wrote a Python script that every day would retrieve the daily 30% coupon by testing 9,999 possibilities against the website application programming interface, which was not properly secured. It took 4 hours to code and less than 20 minutes to run. That year we dined at restaurants as if we were middle class. They later patched it, but we remember it as the golden year. Story 78. Not really for years, but I used to make a lot of money on coupons driving for Pizza Hut. I lived in an area that did not tip, And one night on a delivery, a woman gave me a coupon after she had paid and said that whatever it took off the price I should keep as a tip. So I started answering the phones as often as I could. This was before online ordering. I would take the customer's order, tell them the total, and hang up. Then I would apply whatever coupon I could find that fit the order and print the ticket. It only worked when I was the closing driver because I had to remember the total I told them, but it was not uncommon to get $15 plus whatever they tipped for driving half a mile down the road using this method. Story 79. I worked with servers who collected coupons printed in the paper. When a customer paid cash, they applied the coupon and closed the check, earning an extra $5 several times a day. I only realized what they were doing shortly before I left. Working for chain restaurants is a special hell. On a related note, I once worked at a restaurant where a customer called to complain that he had been charged a larger tip than he left. I rechecked the tips, and the manager also reviewed them at checkout. I had to apologize to the customer at his business. Years later, I realized managers can alter tip amounts, and one or more of them had been adding a few dollars to tips when calculating tip-out amounts for servers, keeping the added money when giving servers the actual amount. One manager drove a very expensive car and seemed unscrupulous. I now work in the film industry and used to work in hospitality. The hospitality industry was far shadier. Story 80. My first credit card arrived when I was 18, many years ago. I opened a bank account and the bank sent me a credit card. I used it for just under 2 years for all kinds of purchases. My first apartment was impressive. I never received a bill. I bought clothes, electronics, subscriptions, and food. One day I went to the bank to deposit money and ask when my replacement card would arrive because my old one was about to expire. The staff said they did not know about the credit card and that I was not supposed to have it. They confiscated it on the spot. I had accumulated tens of thousands of dollars in charges without ever being billed. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.